I just continue to be amazed at the awesome OBS scripts that the community has developed to put cool stuff in your OBS installation, if it's not already built in. So in the spirit of that, we've got some more OBS scripts, both to make your streams look cooler and to make your life easier. Let's jump in. This video was brought to you by ClickUp. Stay tuned to the end of the video to see how I used it to build a useful resource for those of you looking for OBS scripts, as well as how you can use it to save an entire day out of your week. The first script that we have is relevant to my retro aesthetic goodness, and that's the Chromatic Aberration filter. This just lets you add Chromatic Aberration, which is the little RGB separation effect you're used to seeing on old analog video, VHS tapes and the like, to your stream, and even better, it lets you do so with a protected center circle, and you can control where that is, so you can do like I do in these videos where the edges kind of fall off and get more separated as you go, but the center, your subject, is still protected. This is good for emulating old looks for your video games, or making videos look more like VHS tapes along with all the other retro filters we covered in a previous video, or for your face cams to get that effect and things like that. That way, you're not giving people too much headache because the thing that they're looking at is still fine, but you get the aesthetic touches as well. The second one is audio source status. This is actually leveraged with the source dock plugin and allows you to have a much better visual indicator when certain audio sources are muted. So that way you can at a glance know whether you muted yourself correctly and things like that. Very useful for those of you using standard macro pads instead of stream decks where you don't get that visual indicator, on the button. Very useful there. You combine it with the source dock monitor to then add an image source and a text source, and that leverages with the script to display, say, green or red, depending on whether you muted or not. And you can add it multiple times if you want to do your Discord mic, your music, things like that. Pretty sweet. It's a little more complicated to set up than your standard script since it does use a separate plugin as well, but I think it adds a lot of value to some of the stream setups. I'm trying to be more mindful of those of you who don't have stream decks out there. I know you exist, and that's totally fine. And in fact, I'm going to review a tool coming soon that is similar to a stream deck but doesn't have a screen. And so I want to make these tools easily available to you as well. The next script is super simple, but again, when combined with other effects, could be incredibly useful. And that is the pan, zoom, rotate script. Super simple. The entire point of the script is that it adds a filter so that you can add panning, zooming, and spinning and rotating to your sources. Now, this is useful because otherwise you have to have like a source copy or source mirror going on and separate transform properties, whereas this is just a dedicated filter for, spinning or adjusting your sources or whatever that can then be applied with an OBS filters hotkey with a Stream Deck button or a macro pad button so that you can quickly turn it on to like flip yourself or something like that. Or you can even animate it with some of the other plugins and scripts that we've looked at before, where you change the values over time and do like a cool spinny effect or something like that. Keep in mind, with many of the scripts and tools that I highlight, they are best utilized in combination with other things to achieve a greater effect, and that is when you're going to do some really cool stuff. The next script is very experimental, still kind of work in progress, but I wanted to highlight it because I've gotten a lot of questions out of it. Now, obviously, OBS has added pausing recording to the software, and you can still use that if you want to pause your recordings and pick them back up and try to keep everything in one file. This is a script that allows you to make jump cuts in your recording based on your volume level. For a lot of people, this won't apply, but for those of you who specifically just go through and edit your video to jump cuts based on when you stop talking, or at least want to cut down on the extra record time added, this is a script that waits to start listening to your audio device after you've started recording, and then it has a delay that you can set of how long after it stops detecting audio from that device before it pauses the recording. And that way, every time you stop talking after a couple seconds or something, it's going to pause the recording and then pick it back up whenever you start it, and that way it saves you a little bit of time here with your jump cuts and things like that. Again, not useful for everyone, but I think for the target audience of the person who was making this for their use case, it could be a game changer. I'd also just recommend like a foot pedal for something like that. So as soon as you're done talking, you don't have to reach up and press anything. You can hit it off screen and no one has to be any wiser. This next one is as simple as it gets, but I get asked about it on Discord all the time. A simple counter, a death counter, a meme counter, retries counter. Something like that. Instead of having to manually edit your text files and look janky on stream, this one just allows you to add a text source, turn it into a counter, which just, increases or decreases every time you hit a certain button, and then you can map a hotkey to it to then increase or decrease it. That way you have full control without sitting there and being like, delete, enter the right number, blah, blah, blah. You can just smack a button, add it as part of another script, or use it with like voice mod or something like that to, speak it out and control it that way. Every time, you say something, it counts it up. Especially useful if you are counting some joke phrase that you keep saying over and over too much. Very cool there. The theme of this episode's scripts are just kind of the simple things that make a big difference for you. To continue that theme, we have Source Toggler, and this is going to apply if you're trying to show a single graphic and a series of similar graphics. So the example given for this is if you have a bunch of different genres of music that you play or different music players that you want to show at a given time, only one can ever be showing. So then you have a hotkey that shows a source and it will automatically hide every other source either in that scene or in that group. So you set up a group or a nested scene and it only shows that source. So an example that I think I would use for this is when I am showing my advertisement lower thirds. So like if I want to tell you to buy my merch or to join us on Discord, discord.gg/EposVox, or to follow me on Twitter or TikTok or whatever. Instead, if I want to pull that up, instead of having to manually find all the different hotkeys, remember them, visually see them, turn off whichever one is currently active, turn on the one I want to show, I just have one button that turns on the one that I want you to see, and it will automatically, switches from whatever else is active to that one. Very simple. There's already other workarounds, but something that could, make you not need a lot more complicated workarounds to make it happen. And that is kind of the goal with these videos, is to just give you that extra quality of life, that extra 10% of usability back into your streams, to keep it from where you're not obsessing over the tech, over the buttons, over the management, everything's getting out of your way. And in the spirit of that, I wanted a way to make it easier for you to find all the scripts that I recommend, because apparently it's a big deal to ask you to watch the content to get the recommendations that I make in the content. Some people think that. You know what? That's fine. I'm not here to judge. Instead, I wanted to compile all the scripts that I find and recommend even before, or, ones that don't get into videos, into one place, easily sortable by different categories. And for that, I use today's sponsor, ClickUp. ClickUp is the one app that you need to manage your business's backend, be it task tracking, calendar management, chatting with your staff, employees, other collaborators, tracking your video projects. I have bounced through so many different tools trying to find a solution that lets me do everything in one place, and ClickUp is a tool that lets me do that. Plus, if on the off chance it doesn't have the feature that you want, they have so many integrations that you can pull whatever feature from another service natively, into your files. And so you can set up all sorts of forms, you can set up dashboards to keep track of all your meetings and everything going on. And in this case, I have built a super basic, just public list view of all the ongoing scripts that I've used, paired with the link to the script to download on the OBS forums, as well as the video that it came from, if it came from a video. That way you can have it all in one place, easily sortable by visual eye candy for stuff that shows on your stream, tools that just help you control OBS better and make it simpler, or things that help you use OBS to control other things like tally lights or your HomeKit or something like that. ClickUp is honestly stupidly reasonably priced at where they have a free forever plan, or if you sign up, you get to keep using it by yourself and even with some other free users for free forever without giving them a credit card. And plans start at just $5 a month, which is super reasonable. And you can check out how I use it here just to give you a basic view of all the scripts that I recommend and talk about worth using, updated for 2022, and kind of a little bit of why they're useful linked below while you're checking them out and hopefully using them to save a lot of time with your business management today. Remember, be kind, rewind.